Welcome back to the Empire Builders podcast. Dave Young alongside Stephen Semple. And Stephen, you're supposed
Yeah,
to
we're going off.
whisper.
We're going off the reservation. I know. Yes.
You were supposed to whisper in my ear today's business that we're going to discuss, and you just mentioned trust. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking, like, this is not like a bank and trust. This is not like a trust funds. This
In God we trust. Money.
No, not that. This is basically this is like trust. This is like consumer trust. People trusting each other, people trusting businesses, people trusting, I don't know, government.
Yeah. Well.
Are we living in a post-trust age? Is that kind of the question?
Well. Gallup and other organizations that measure basically people's trust in institutions and organizations and businesses and things like that, across the board, all agree it's at an all-time low.
Mm-hmm.
Across the board, our trust in organizations, businesses, other people, things like that has declined to a level not seen before. And what's disturbing on this is if you're coming up with an innovative idea, if you're wanting to create a movement, if you're wanting to get support from something, if you're wanting to sell a product or service, everyone agrees. I had the opportunity to run lots of workshops and speak at lots of places. And I'll ask people, is trust important to what you do? Everyone agrees. Trust is super important.
Sure.
We all agree on that. Studies show trust is way down. So we all agree it's really important. All the studies show it's way down. So it got me to thinking and really studying, how do we establish and build trust as organizations? And what I found was there's actually 3 levels of trust. And one of the things we're going to dive into here a little bit, the highest level is this concept of parasocial relationships, which we'll dig into.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I just thought, if you're wanting to build something big and large and grand, there's a point where what you've got to recognize is you've got to get people to trust this new idea that you're doing.
Yeah.
So when I get talking to folks about trust, I'll often ask, what are the things that you do to build trust? And we did this in the workshop that I did with Matthew Burns and Gary
Sure.
Bernier
Selling professional services.
on the selling professional services. One of the questions was that, and people talked about how, well, you do what you say you're going to do, and be on time and be polite and be transparent, and all those things build trust. And it's true, but those are kind of like level 1 trust things.
Mm-hmm.
They will form a basic level of trust. And the other challenge with it is, for the most part, they were things that you had to have an interaction with the client or the prospective client in order to even establish that.
Man, this is a Gordian knot. This is a tough nut you want to crack.
Yeah.
I think of a lot of things. When do you want to dive into the parasocial effect? It happens to me. I don't know, 3-4 times a month. Somebody will show up at Wizard Academy at a class, and they'll go, "Wow, I love that podcast that you and Stephen do. I feel like I know you." Right, and that's the parasocial influence.
It is.
Right. It's
It
they
is.
don't know me from Adam, but because I'm this wacky, goofy guy that is your sidekick on this podcast, they think they know me.
Right.
And to be honest, I think I'm pretty close to just being me when I'm doing this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of you what you see is what you get.
Right.
But man, there's some I think of some of the podcast guys like Joe Rogan,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you listen to Joe Rogan long enough, you feel like you know him. And does that mean you trust what he says? Or I think the other problem with the parasocial influence is that people know it and can use it. You can create trust where you may not be trustworthy, but you've figured out how to use parasocial influence to the point where people trust you because of this mask that you wear of trustworthiness.
Well, it's not a mask. This is what we're going to explore.
Okay.
So the basic level of trust. So let's just go through the first two, because what happens in parasocial is the highest third level. So the first level is the basic trust. Be a good person. Do what you say you're going to do. Show up on time. Be polite. Be respectful. Be transparent. All that is your basic level of trust. Now, there's another level of trust above that, and it's called transfer trust. Because again, these workshops that we've done, people will say, yeah, but I also get referrals, and referrals are even better. Well, refer is a
Sure.
transfer of trust. So in other words, if you trust me and I say that Bernier guy is a great guy, a degree of the trust of for me is transferred to that other person. And so you
Yeah.
now trust that other person.
Yeah.
So that's transferable trust.
Do you count reviews into that category?
Yes. Sure. And all these things are a scale. The more you know me, the higher the transfer. Google reviews are absolutely a transfer of trust. Yes.
Uh-huh.
And again, these are all on a continuum, right? There's some that
Sure.
are
Yeah.
the more you know me and the more you trust me, the stronger there is that transference of trust.
Yeah. I
But all
agree.
those things are all on a continuum, and they're kind of the second level. They're even more powerful than the basic level. And just like an anonymous Google review is less powerful than a Google review where it's from somebody, and it's even more powerful if it's from somebody that I know and trust,
Yeah. For sure.
right? Now, here's where it gets weird. And this is where people will get frustrated. A social influencer on Instagram will
Mhm.
sometimes have more weight and more power on their recommendations on some medical procedure than a medical doctor.
Yes.
And this is where it gets weird. And part of it is now, when we talk about parasocial relationships, we're bastardizing it a little bit. Because if you actually look up parasocial relationships happen, are defined by the social scientists that are studying this stuff as being the experience you had where somebody comes up to you feeling like you're already in a relationship, and they may approach you in that friendlier manner even though you've never met.
Mhm.
Most people come up to you, they're a little bit reserved, and then you get that person who walks right up to you like you're buddies,
Yeah.
and you've never met them,
Mhm.
but they feel like they've met you because they've been listening to this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it tends to be a one-way street, the
It is.
parasocial influence, right?
It
It's
is the
yeah.
parasocial influence, but that's the parasocial influence. Now, I'm going to take it to trust, because the people who've done a great job of developing really deep parasocial relationships are people like the Kardashians, who share all of the craziness of their life publicly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure they do, but do they really?
We feel like they are.
We feel like it. Yeah.
But what's happening is they're not just sharing the good, they're sharing the bad, and they're
Yeah.
sharing the ugly.
Yeah.
Now, here's what ends up happening. For the history of mankind, up until like the last couple of decades, if you knew the good, the bad, and the ugly about somebody, chances are they were a member of your village,
Sure. Yeah.
right? So, for the vast majority of mankind, the only people that you knew the good, bad, and the ugly were people inside your inner circle. They were members of your village, or they were a coworker, but they were somebody you actually knew well.
And probably why we always say, an expert is somebody from 50 miles away,
Right.
because we know the good, the bad, and all the things from the people that live near us.
Correct. So now what ends up happening is the signal to us when all of a sudden one of the Kardashians gets on and shares the bad and the ugly, all of a sudden we develop that tight relationship, because the only people that historically through the entire history of mankind that we knew the bad and the ugly were our close community. That means, guess what? We're now close community, even though it's only one way.
Yeah. Yeah, I see
Emotionally,
that.
that's what happens. Now, when somebody's in your close community, do you trust them? Yeah, you do.
Well, it depends.
People that we know the bad about them,
Mhm.
trust them. We
We trust
actually
them to
do
be who
trust
they
them.
are.
We trust them to be who they are. And so
Yeah.
when they recommend something, we see that recommendation as genuine,
Sure. That I'd buy.
right? Now, again, remember, I still might not see them as an expert, because remember, expertise and trust are slightly different things. But the emotion of trust I extend to them, which means when they make a recommendation, there's transferred trust to that recommendation.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, how do we then really establish deep parasocial relationships? It actually comes from sharing weaknesses and vulnerabilities.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah.
Right. So If we want to, as a business, develop that highest level of trust that comes with parasocial relationships.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap up this story and tell you how to apply this lesson to your business right after this.
Hey, Rick, how's it going?
Great.
Great.
Yeah, I just had an amazing 90 minutes
You did?
with the host of the Empire Builders podcast.
Really?
You've heard the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I finally took him up on the starter session.
So you drank the Kool-Aid.
Guzzled it.
How did it taste?
Well, he answered those questions that were keeping me up at night. Now I know what I need to do. So it tasted like strawberries.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, and you can book your free starter session on this podcast website.
Okay, Dave. Say, and they haven't missed a thing.
Let's pick up our story where we left off, and trust me, you haven't missed a thing.
If we want to, as a business, develop that highest level of trust that comes with parasocial relationships, we actually need to share in vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Not just our expertise. Oh, I've got 25 years in this and blah, 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 blah. That actually doesn't establish it. And in fact, the power of that has gone down because our trust of institutions have gone down. We trust medical doctors less today than we used to. So standing up and saying, I'm a medical doctor with a degree from Harvard doesn't mean as much as it used to.
Sure. Yeah.
Sharing some of your past life screw-ups actually is more powerful.
Are you doing this? Are you doing this in an effort to get me to share my screw ups? Is that? I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't have a list ready.
Right. No, but the weird thing is talking about your family and talking about, the arguments that you had with your sisters and things like that actually is powerful messaging towards developing trust.
Sure. I agree. I mean, the opposite is true, right? If somebody that we've been like relationally close to, I'm talking like business relationships, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know any of their personal foibles or history.
Yes.
Even though we've known them for some time.
Right.
I don't think we trust them as much as people who we've talked to about matters of the heart and frailty and fear and failures.
Yeah, because trust is this weird, wacky, wackadoodle emotion, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that person that you know all of their weaknesses and all of their flaws, you trust more. Now, if you know they're not a medical doctor and they're giving medical advice, you may not accept that they have expertise in an area that they're talking about, but you do trust them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd buy that.
Yeah, and then the person who has the deep expertise, you might not actually trust.
It's true, and I'm not going to get into details, but I had that experience with someone in the medical industry just this morning.
Right.
Where like some of the things they said to me, I'm like, but really, you don't know
weird
me.
Thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, the other area where we can get trust is by extending trust. And so this is the reason why I want to talk about vulnerability. So the real key in all of this, when we share a weakness, we're being vulnerable because I'm opening myself up for ridicule. I screwed up in these things. Man, Dave might judge me and never like me again. That's what creates that feeling of vulnerability. I'm opening up. I could be judged. I could be seen this way. We could now no longer be friends. This is a vulnerability.
Right.
Vulnerability also comes when we extend trust. Extend trust, we make ourselves vulnerable and we get trust back. Because anytime we are vulnerable, that's the key to trust building. So a great example of that, and here's where you can apply it in business. So let's tie this back to one business lesson. Your guarantees, your warranties. So as soon as you create a guarantee or warranty, you open yourself up to that percentage of the population that take advantage of things and could take advantage of you. Oh my God. Yeah. If I did this as my warranty, people could take advantage of me. 1 hour heating and air. For not on time, you don't pay a dime. Oh my God, we could really open ourselves up. Okay, so you know what? Let's put in the disclaimers to protect ourselves. The moment you start putting those disclaimers in to protect yourself from that person means I don't trust you, and I'm going to protect myself from you with all of these disclaimers. I've now weakened the trust relationship.
Yeah.
The more I remove those disclaimers and say, no, there's no disclaimers, I actually start building trust because I go, look, I trust you to be honest with me. I trust
Mm-hmm.
you to be honest with me. So you know what? I don't have the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I know. Yes, there'll be the odd person who will take advantage of you, and you just got to be
Mm-hmm.
okay with that. And what you
Yeah.
got to ask yourself is, for those couple of people who take advantage of you, I'm able to build massive levels of trust with the rest of the world. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
really the question you have to ask
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah. But people don't realize, and the real reason for a warranty is actually to build trust. You can trust my product, you can trust my service because I have this warranty.
Sure.
And then the moment you start putting the disclaimers in it, you actually start bringing down the trust and weakening your own warranty.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that.
No, and they don't realize too that someone that actually makes a claim on your warranty, it provides you with a story to tell. And I'll
Yes.
give you an example. A jewelry client that guaranteed that the center stone of your engagement ring or your diamond jewelry is not going to fall out.
It's Kessler, right? Does that?
Kessler's the first one. This was a different one, but
Yeah.
what happens is you make this guarantee. Now, of course you hedge by making sure that your settings are strong. If somebody makes the claim that their diamond, fell out, that it wasn't theft or fraud,
Right. Yes.
right? We would like, if there's any piece of that ring left and you can bring it in, we would like to have a look at it.
Yeah.
Right, because a jeweler with a loop can tell if there were pliers used to pry the diamond out.
Right.
As opposed to it got slammed in a car door and the diamond fell down the drain. And if you lost the ring entirely, that's an insurance claim.
Right.
Right. That or it was stolen, that's a police report.
Yes.
One of the ones that I'm thinking of, they actually the customer lost it. Their finger got caught in a shark tank when they were diving. Right. And it's like, well, that's a really cool story to tell in an ad.
Yeah.
And yes, we replaced the diamond, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about, there's a cost. First of all, it's way more rare than you ever think it's going to be.
It absolutely is.
Unless you're actually a fraud and you're ripping people off left and right. The people that make claims on your warranty are going to be way farther and fewer between than you ever thought possible.
Yes.
But when they do make the claim, you've got a fantastic story that then demonstrates that trust was well placed.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, the whole purpose of creating a warranty or a guarantee, whole purpose is to build trust.
Sure.
And the moment you start putting all these disclaimers in because you don't trust the customer, be honest with you, you are dramatically weakening your warranty. It doesn't carry the same power as it used to.
If this jeweler would have said, "Oh, well, if you'd read the fine print, you'd realize that this warranty is not valid if you're engaging in high risk sporting activities where you have to use your hands and
or the worst ones where it's like if we deem that this was a high risk activity, there's all sorts of things that can be done. So what I want people to realize is the highest level of trust. So if trust is really, really super important and you want to gain that trust, you can do it through parasocial relationships where you're sharing personal stories or you share vulnerabilities and weaknesses and flaws about yourself, own up to them. The other way you can do it is just through the vulnerability. Vulnerability comes from the extending of trust first, which is then really having those warranties and guarantees and things like that with few, if any, restrictions. And it's scary. I get that it's scary, but there's a power to that fear.
Yeah, if you want people to trust you, you must trust them first.
Correct.
You have to trust them to do the right thing.
And you can trust them by limiting things on your warranties, and you can trust them by trusting when you share a vulnerability with them that you're not going to be judged. But it all comes with the extension of trust first.
Now, just because we've talked about this, I don't want people to stop coming up to me and pretending that we're old friends. Like if you listen to the podcast and you run into me, please, I'd like to get to know you too.
Well,
right, you're going to feel like you know me, but give me the chance to get to know you. So
here's the challenge, Dave. If you want more of that to happen, you got to just start sharing a few more vulnerable stories.
Oh, So like you really want to know the details of the medical conversation I had? No, you don't. You don't want to know that.
You can save it for the next time.
Yeah, well, let's just say it's a developing story. We'll leave it at that.
So you give us an update next time.
Maybe so.
All right. You know what? I wanted to share this conversation about trust because I think it's really important, simply because everyone's agreeing it's important, and yet it's declining. And this is what businesses and professionals and entrepreneurs need to do in order to build trust.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad we had this conversation, Stephen.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks for your time on this, and thanks for humoring me on this little journey that we did today.
All right, and for all your bank and trust needs, visit the fine folks at Empire Builders Bank and Trust.
Because you can trust us.
You can trust us. That's just one last point. The least effective way of building trust is to say, "Trust me."
Yeah, that's it. That is the guarantee that you can't trust the person.
Oh, trust me.
On that
Thank
note,
you.
David, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please share us, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and leave us a big, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review at Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to schedule your own 90-minute empire building session, you can do it at empirebuildingprogram.com.